Hi, welcome to my channel Mostly Knitting. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're new here, I'm Tash, and this is a weekly podcast where I talk mostly about the knitting that I've been doing during the week, and I also put out regular tutorials. So it's Wednesday the 30th of October and I'm recording in Sydney, Australia. So I usually start with my finished objects. I don't have any large finished objects, but I do have a small finished object. I've been making this little stack of washcloths for my daughter, and I made the final one. So I wanted to make her 4 of these. And this is out of Debbie Bliss DK 100% cotton, which is really soft. So for these ones, I've made them more like for a face washer. And then I think I'll make her some more out of like a sturdier cotton for dishcloths. And so with this last one that I just made, so I managed to get 2 of them out of one 50-gram ball of yarn, and I cast on 37 stitches, and it's very basic. It's just like roughly a square with some seed stitch and some broken rib. But in the last one, when I was weaving in the ends, I just had what seems like probably an obvious brainwave, but I thought, why have I not put like a little hanger, especially if they're washcloths for the shower, and you know, if you've got a hook or something in the shower. So it's probably a little bit small, but I didn't really have much of a tail on this one. So I just crocheted a little chain on the end, and I do have this much left out of the second ball. I'm not sure if I had any left from the first ball. Even though I've woven in the ends on the other one, I can always use a little bit of this, and I'll probably make a slightly larger chain on the end so that they can get hung up in the shower, in the bathroom area. So yeah, I'm happy that they're done. They're just great little projects, but I'm obviously going to cast on some more, probably about the same size. I think they're about 8, maybe 7.5 inches square, which I think is about right. Anything too big and it's kind of annoying. And obviously they weigh about 25 grams, seeing it's half a 50-gram skein. So that's my only little finished object for the week, but I do have quite a lot of progress on my works in progress. But I thought I would do a friend from the vault now because I'm wearing it. So I try to save my friend from the vault garments for when I haven't got a finished garment. So what I'm wearing here is Nordiska by Caitlin Hunter. And I knit it out of Hedgehog Fibers Skinny Singles, which is a single ply fingering weight yarn, very similar to Tosh Merino Light. It's super wash, and yeah, it's a really lovely color. I think I don't know, I can't remember the name of it. It's some kind of rose or antique rose or something like that. I made this in 2020 and it took me about 7 weeks. I probably was working on other things at the same time. It doesn't look like it has color work. It has color work at the bottom and on the cuffs. So, well, more than just the cuffs, sort of from the elbow down to the end. So it's sort of got 3/4 length sleeves and color work at the bottom. So the color work colors, the gray is actually these 2 grays is a sort of a dark purpley gray, which is composition book gray, Madeline Tosh Merino Light composition book gray, and the light whitey sort of off-white color is Antler. I've used Antler a lot. Antler's changed a little bit over the years. It used to be sort of a very pale grayish white, and then it was a bit almost creamy or almost white. Anyway, it has changed. I have noticed over the years it has changed a little bit, but I think this is more the grayish version. Anyway, it didn't take very much of that. It used 38 grams of the composition book gray and 15 grams of the Antler, and about 1.5 skeins of the Hedgehog Fibers. So this is actually a bit funny in terms of the sizing. It's actually got some really lovely cables down the raglan. It's got a V-neck. I don't do a lot of V-necks. It's not normally a look that I go for, but you know, I like this one, but it's not the V. I don't actually wear this much. I think I might have only worn it once or twice, and there is a reason. I'll get into that in a second. I made the extra small size, which is 40-inch bust. But the gauge is, so it doesn't look like 40 inches, right? And it's not 40 inches. The gauge on the pattern is 20 stitches on a 3.5mm needle. Now I think Caitlin Hunter must be an incredibly loose knitter, because I don't even know what needle I would have to use to get 20 stitches with a fingering weight yarn like this. So, and I used a yarn pretty similar to the one she used in the pattern. So, I used a 3.5mm needle because I like the fabric that I get on this, but I got 26 stitches. Now, normally I would say that's just such a different gauge that you're going to end up with a really different garment. And I guess mine certainly, I don't know, it doesn't feel that different, but obviously it's a lot smaller. It's got negative ease instead of positive ease. So I made it more like a top rather than a sweater, but I couldn't imagine having a sweater with sleeves at this length anyway. It just sort of seems like if it's that cold and I need a sweater, I'd want them to be long sleeves. Anyway, to the reason I don't, oh sorry, I just will mention, so I do really like this cable down the raglan. So mine ended up, what did I say? Did I say it ended up 30 inches? With the 20 stitch gauge, it ended up 30 inches. So that's 2 inches of negative ease, but it feels fine, but it definitely feels like a top, not like a jumper. And it's quite cropped. So it's 10.5 inches from here to here. So I have to wear it with something fairly high-waisted or you'll see my midriff. That's not really the reason I don't wear it. The reason I don't wear it, you probably can't tell, but it's very tight around here. So, and it's not really because of the color work, it's actually some decreases at the end because it's really fine here. I thought it was the bind off. So I redid the bind off and then I'm still finding it tight. So I realized actually there's a big line of decreases right before this 1x1 color work, like right here, quite a lot of decreases. So I think to make it wearable for me, I'll either have to just rip back to around here and remove the decreases. Obviously see if I can find some more yarn because if I'm gonna have more stitches, I'll keep that 1x1 and then just have more columns. If I can't find the yarn, I will I'll just make like a row or two less, just make it shorter. And probably the same with the ribbing, just make it 1 row less. I mean, I'll make it work. The other alternative is to rip it right back to like sort of practically cut off the sleeves and make it short sleeved. So I could go either way. I'll show you what I'm wearing it with. I'm wearing it with, and you probably won't be able to see it. I might put a photo up of this particular skirt because I made this skirt. This is V9090, so it's a Vogue 9090. It's got pockets, great big deep pockets. It's got like a yoke section here with pleats coming out from underneath it, and I have a mic where I actually need to be talking into it, so it's got an invisible zip. And it's midi length, so like it's kind of like halfway down my cuff. I'll find a photo of myself in this skirt, probably that I took years ago, but at least you can see the skirt. It is one of my favorite skirt sewing patterns. It's really easy, and I don't have a huge amount of sewing experience. I've made 5 of them. I've made 2 midi lengths and 3 full lengths down to like my ankles. And it's just really easy and versatile. This is kind of in like a dark denim, but I've made it in some really beautiful fabrics. So I'll have to try and, at some point, you know, when it is in my plan to be sewing more, I'll start showing some of my sewing friends from the vault. But anyway, I guess I've got a whole friend from the vault outfit at the moment. This Nordiska and also this skirt. One of the things I would say is that maybe this isn't the best color because this is just like a blue denim, and I think this would look nicer in like maybe I don't know, like a gray or like an almost black. Anyway, I think it's fine with this. Yeah, so I want to wear this, right? I put a lot of work into it. I really like the cable. I like this color work on the bottom, I think is really, and I actually think like if I just stand back and you see it with the skirt, like I think it like the fit and the style with that skirt, I think looks quite nice. Like I like how that sort of feels quite tailored, but it's this tight color work that is just right here, because I've got quite large forearms. That's what's bothering me. So the downsizing for the body was no problem, but downsizing too much for the sleeves, as in like my gauge is a lot tighter. When I say downsizing, a much tighter gauge has caused this to be uncomfortably tight. Also, like I'm tighter when I magic loop as well. So I probably did that on magic loop. I don't think I went up a needle size, so that would be a reason. But I don't think just even one needle size up would fix that well enough. Anyway, I'd be interested to hear what people think, whether they think like, yes, this detail is still really pretty, just make it a bit bigger there, or do you think it would just look nicer cut off here and just have that as like the little feature? Yeah, so I'd love your thoughts if you have an opinion. Yep, so that's my, I guess, 2 friends from the vault for this week. So I'm up to my works in progress, and you can tell what I'm wearing is not finished because there is a needle hanging off it, and there is a whole section that's not completed, but it is almost done. So this is the Sellwood tee by Caitlin Hunter, and I knit it using Orange Flower MCS Sport, and it's kind of a navy sort of colorway. This is the second ball, and I've almost finished, so it really only used just a little bit more than 1 skein. So this is a sport weight yarn, as I said, and it's designed for a sport weight yarn. The pattern is written to be used with a 4mm needle, but I went down 1 needle size. I knit the 35¼ inch size, but my pattern gauge is definitely tighter. So it's coming out at 29 inches. I'll stand up and show you. So that's 3 inches of negative ease. It's got a really lovely lace pattern. I've only blocked this section here, so I've knit quite a bit where I haven't blocked it. And if you look at the projects on Ravelry, it's one that really varies a lot depending on the yarn chosen. So I've chosen a wool blend, I've got a much tighter gauge. I've got a camisole underneath, so you can see with the holes and everything, even though my holes are quite small, there's a lot of them, right? So it's all over lace. So I'd have to wear, I'm wearing a camisole underneath. But if you look at the pattern on Ravelry, some of the holes are very, very large. If the person has chosen like a completely linen or just a plant fiber blend. So where I've got to is I finished the back and bound off there. Then I've done the front and done 1 section, and I've actually done a 3 needle bind off there. The pattern actually says to do a 3 needle bind off with a visible seam, so putting the wrong sides together, but I didn't really want to do that. I don't really like a visible seam, so I just did it right sides together, so it's not a visible seam. The reason one of the reasons I didn't finish is I didn't have time, right? So this was actually a fair bit of knitting, but I am almost there. Like I've literally only got this to go. Actually, that's not true. I've also got to do the ribbing around the edge and also the ribbing for the neckline. But I can't do that until I've finished this, and I've decided, I guess I could do this armhole, but one thing I wasn't sure about, if I come closer you can hopefully see these couple of sections, so it's all over lace, and even here as you're decreasing you still keep some of the lace pattern there, but there's a section here and a section here that's pure stockinette, and I don't know, I'm not sure about it. Maybe it doesn't matter, it will probably be covered by my hair, but I don't usually knit things going, I'm not fussed about that because my hair will be over it. If I don't like it, I should change it. So I'm just not sure whether to, I just have to undo the 3 needle bind off and go back a few rows, back to about here, and add in some knit 2 together yarn overs. So the pattern has some very large decreases, like a knit 4 together, which is a right leaning decrease, losing 3 stitches, and then a left leaning decrease, I think slip 2, knit 2 together plus those 2 over. Anyway, another 3 stitch, did I say 3 needle? 3 stitch decrease left leaning. So obviously if you do that and you want to keep the same stitch count, you have to have an equal number of yarn overs. But I could, and obviously you're losing stitches here, but what I could do is, instead of doing a knit 4 together, I could do like a knit 3 together or a knit 2 together and still retain some of the lace look here. So I haven't decided on that yet, whether I'll do that. Do you think that's, I'm going to have like a ribbing, do you think it's even worth bothering, or just there's so much happening in the thing that nobody's really going to be noticing that? Is it worth it? I do like hearing opinions from others, otherwise I just think, you're just in your own head, thinking it matters, but maybe it doesn't. Certainly when I was looking at it flat, I was like, oh, that's a bit of a large patch of nothing there. So I just have to make a decision about that. Then if I'm okay with it, match this side, do the pickup for the neckline and the armholes. So the ribbing is meant to be done on 2 needle sizes smaller on a 3.5mm, but because I've gone to a 3.75, I'll just do a 3.25 millimeter for the ribbing for this. So yeah, almost done. I'm sure it will be done for next week. The other thing that was kind of a bit weird about this pattern, right? So when you're knitting this, at this stage here, you are actually losing a stitch every row. But the way what Caitlin's written in the pattern is bind off one stitch, but she's written bind off one stitch, whether it's the start of the row or the end of the row. I don't know how you bind off one stitch at the end of a row. At least I've never bound off a stitch at the end of the row. So I just ignored that. And I also don't really like binding off stitches on the end. It's quite messy for the pickup. So instead what I did was just decrease, which is more what I'm used to in a neckline, is decreases one stitch in. So you never want to decrease right on the edge if you're going to pick up later for a button band, because you like to have like a nice clean stockinette stitch on the end. So on this side I did all of them left leaning so that they just followed the path, and then on this side I'll do them all right leaning. So on this side, because it was happening every row, I was doing either slip slip knits or slip slip purls. On this side I'll be doing knit 2 togethers and purl 2 togethers, just for, you know, balancing so that the two look the same, sort of slanting like that. Yeah, so almost done, and I'm actually really happy. So the size it was meant to be was about 3 inches of positive ease. Because my gauge is smaller, I'm getting 3 inches of negative ease, and I think that's really lovely. Like I've got it still on with this skirt, but I'd wear it probably with pants, like work pants or something. Yeah, so I think it's lovely. I mean, look, oh, it looks a bit crazy at the moment because I've got one arm, sort of an odd one arm top. I'll just pull that out around like that. Yes, so I think this is going to be really lovely. I guess sleeveless vest. It's just a top really. I'm going to wear it like a top. Yep, so that's the Sellwood tee by Caitlin Hunter. It's been on, oh, I forgot to mention, it's been on the needles for 52 days. And yep, that's all I have to say about it, but I'm going to get changed into my another work in progress. So my second work in progress is the clay sweater by Ozetta, and I'm using this BC Garn Loch Lomond. I have made a little bit, just a tiny little bit of progress since last week. I'm knitting the extra small, which is 39 inches, but you can see it's very large. I haven't picked up the stitches for the neckline. It's got quite a, quite a high neckline. I'm knitting this on one needle size smaller, and I'm really glad I did, because it's coming out just the tiniest bit smaller. I thought it was going to be about 36 inches, but after blocking, it's actually 38 inches. So only just a smidge smaller. So it is really going to be very oversized. That is 6 inches of positive ease on me. But I think it's going to fit the bill for what I want. I definitely want it oversized. It's going to be really nice and light because this is a very lightweight yarn. You can see it's got very large, it's going to have very large sleeves, but yes, I want this to be an oversized sweater, so I'm okay with that. It's got this textured stitch, which is mostly just sort of some garter sections, which obviously these ones here were knit flat, and then once you join in the round, garter knit in the round, you've got to purl these stitches. So I did notice, I'm just going to come a bit closer because well, maybe I'll talk about it first and then it's sort of hard. I want to show you, but I also want to talk, but then you've got a headless person talking to you. So my garter in the round where I'm purling to create the ridges is definitely a bit looser, and the garter in the round is a little bit prouder. It pops out a little bit more. But what I did since last week was I did this one little row here where I wrapped the purl stitches the other way around. Now I have read before that it uses less yarn wrapping the other direction. So obviously if you're using less yarn, it usually pulls the stitches in a little bit. And yeah, I can see it. It's not hugely noticeable, but it's a little bit tighter. So I am thinking I might start doing that. I'm definitely not ripping back because this is flat. This is the last flat section. This is the first in the round. And for the purpose and style of this sweater, it's definitely not, this isn't meant to be a masterpiece. It's meant to be a wearable oversized sweater. and I don't think it looks bad, right? So I'm happy with that. I'm just debating whether I will even bother wrapping the other direction, because I don't want it to like distort my gauge and pull in too much. So yeah, I might just show you my storm sweater, because this was knit. It has a lot, the storm sweater has a lot of garter sections, garter in the round. So if you look at this here, let me look at, there's a bit more sections on the back. Can you see these garter sections here? They were all knit flat, right? Because that's, you know, the sleeve came later. So that's knitting, that's knitting. And then down here, past the sleeves, which is like miles down, these are purling. But I don't think they look any different, like in the whole context of this sweater. I wouldn't look at that and go, wow, that looks so different to up here. So I'm not even sure that it's really worth worrying about. But it has been interesting for me and something for me to think about. And I've actually been, when I get to the section about Patty Lyons' Knitting Bag of Tricks workbook, I'll talk about it a little bit more there, because that was actually my exercise for this week. But yes, it results in combination knitting. So if you purl wrapping the stitch from, like, instead of wrapping a purl around that direction, you go the other way. When you come to knit the next row, all of the stitches are mounted incorrectly in the other direction. So you just knit through the back loop, which is fine. It just then results in that slightly more compressed, because there's slightly less yarn used. And for me, I don't know if it will make a difference in the gauge, but it certainly means that the purl bumps aren't sticking out of the fabric quite as much. So, and it wasn't hard to do, like it was not a big difference. It takes me just a tiny bit longer because my hands are so autopilot to go that way. But once I'm going the other direction, I'm kind of like, that becomes my new rhythm. So yeah, so this has been on the needles for 16 days. And because I'm nearly finished the Sellwood tee, I think this will start to get a little bit more attention. And I did really need to have a think about what was I going to do with the rest of the purl sections. Was I going to wrap them in reverse, or will I keep wrapping them just the way I've been doing all the other ones? I'll probably just keep wrapping them. Like, maybe I'll just consciously tighten up a little bit in my purling. That's probably going to be as much as I want to do, rather than reverse wrapping the whole way. Might tighten it up just a bit much. Anyway, I think that's enough on that. So that is and it's really hot here in Sydney. It's 27 degrees. So I'm going to take this off and show you my next work in progress. My next work in progress is the Audrey top by Petite Knit, and I'm knitting it out of this Shibui 100% linen, and I think the colorway is Poppy, and I'm holding it double because this is a fingering weight yarn. And this is the back. I've actually done the front, and which looks crazy small, but I mentioned last week that because my gauge is a bit smaller, I'm just going to move this up. Instead of, it's meant to sort of sit down here. I'm actually wearing my first version of the Audrey top, my first and only. This will be my second one, but instead this is meant to be sitting here. I'll just move it up here and knit a little bit longer. Although in saying that, I might not knit it any longer, because if you look at, this is my first one, look how long that has come. This is pretty much turned into like a beach cover up, because I'd feel too exposed to wear this just out and about. So I'm wearing it here now because I'm sitting straight and not moving around. But yes, I'd wear this more like over some swimmers. But yes, it was meant to sort of sit here, but I think I'll move it up here and maybe only add another row or two working down. So that's the front. This is the back. So I've made a little bit of progress. I think I only had like maybe that much done. But I worked on this last night. I think I did about an hour on it. But even working on this for 1 hour without doing anything else in between is too much for me. I don't think I should really work on this more than 20, 30 minutes max at a time. The 100% linen just does not have almost no give, like just minuscule amount of give, which means like as I'm knitting, it's just more tiring on my hands. So the skin, it's not my skin that hurts, it's just like the muscles get really achy in my hands from using a yarn that doesn't have any give as I'm wrapping. So yes, an hour is definitely too long. I sort of, by the end of it, I was like, okay, I got to stop that. So half an hour max. So this will get done, but I just need to do it in increments. So this is the back, and I'll just show you the back of this one because it actually has, the front is the same as the back, except the back has this extra vertical piece, which then raises the back neckline, and then you keep these 4 stitches live for the front, and you're meant to actually bind them all off on the back, but for this one I kept them live as well, and then I did the I-cord and then grafted it at the end. So I mean, I could have just like, they talk about grafting even when you've already bound it off, but I don't really understand that. I usually graft live stitches, so when I finish this I'll keep them live, do the I-cord, and then graft them at the back. So I've made a bit of progress, but because of the nature of working with it and it's hard on my hands, it will be a little bit slow going. But I sort of feel like I don't want to start another summer top until this is at least joined in the round. But because it's hard on my hands and it probably won't get that much progress, I might just give myself permission to cast on another one, which I'll get into in another summer top, which I'll get into in my plans. But anyway, that's the Audrey top by Petite Knit. I am making the smallest size. It's been on the needles for 33 days, so a little bit of a while, but will probably be a while given it hurts to knit on it. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but it starts to. So it starts to hurt after about 20-30 minutes, in which case, once it starts to hurt, it's kind of a sign. Stop it and do something else. So I've got 2 more works in progress because I was really good this week. I didn't cast on anything new. So 1 shawl and 1 pair of socks. So the shawl is Pure Joy by Locatelli. And I have made little, I thought I hadn't made any progress, but I have made a little bit. This is it's 2-color shawl. This is obviously the initial color, you can't really sort of say, I suppose it's the main color. They're both Skein Classy. This is the colorway Mist, and this is in the navy. And this is all I've got left of the first ball, which is 5 grams, and I had 20 grams last week, so I obviously need a little bit. And I'm onto the last wedge. So it's got these, am I holding it the right way? No, I'm not. It's got these big wedge sections with this contrast color sort of marking between them with sort of some eyelets. And then I've just started the last wedge. It sort of starts small and the rows end up really, really long again. And then there's a really big chunks of like a big sort of border, I guess, almost of this. So there is actually quite a bit of knitting. And I have another skein. I don't know where I just put it. It's fallen on the ground. I have another skein of this one here, and I'm obviously going to need it. So, yep, so that's getting some work on it slowly, but I'm not in any rush for it. And it has been on the needles for 45 days. So my last work in progress is another pair of the Skimmer socks. And I actually finished one. So I did quite a lot of walking this week, and this has been my walking knitting because I finished the washcloths. So this is the Skimmer Socks Revisited by Sheila Toy Stromberg. I knitted out of some leftover, I mostly make these out of leftovers because they use so little yarn. This is String Theory Colorworks, what is it? String Theory Colorworks in the colorway Resistor. And then I had a contrast color Skein, this green here. And so I finished one sock and I've actually started the second one, and I'm on the foot of the second one. So yep, that's coming along. They're not, you know, I guess I've shown, I don't know how many I've made, probably a dozen. But yes, they're just, I have pretty much memorized the pattern now, and I know my numbers. I've got enough for myself. I think I'd like to, if my mum would like some more, I have to check with her. I'm happy to make her a few more because I've got more than I need really right now. And I think I've only made 2 for her. So I just need to check if she does want some more and what colors. So, yep. So, oh yeah, and this one weighs 17.7 grams. So you can definitely, if you've got 35 grams and it's not a super thick fingering weight yarn, you can probably get a pair of these. And I wear a US, women's in a sneaker, women's US 9. So I'm up to acquisitions and plans, and I thought I might just start out by mentioning, particularly in relation to Petite Knit patterns. So I have made a few Petite Knit patterns, and I've talked about some plans for Petite Knit patterns. And a few people had mentioned last week and before actually about Petite Knit's junior patterns, but often when I put in a search and I just look up, say, Moby Sweater, just the main women's adult one pops up first. In fact, I don't often even see the junior one, but when I went into her Ravelry sort of designer page, and then if I sorted it alphabetically and then I looked down for M for Moby, then I could see, oh, Moby and then Moby Junior. So that's been helpful for me when I've been thinking about making something, to just go and check, is there a junior version? So some of her patterns there aren't. So for example, the Oslo sweater, there isn't a junior version of that, just the adult size, and it has a lot of positive ease. It's like, I think the smallest size is like 41 inches. So, and that can get a bit hard to modify unless you are just using a yarn that's got a much tighter gauge or whatever. So, because if it was say a raglan sweater, it's pretty easy to modify a raglan to make it smaller just by dropping off the last few increases, right? Or casting on less stitches under the arms. But with a different kind of construction sweater, similar to say the clay pullover or the storm sweater, you sort of already, like when you cast on the stitches for the back, you've already kind of determined the size. You don't get to sort of mess with that later. So anyway, that's where I just wanted to mention that first, because so if you are on the petite side, or you're finding the Petite Knit, it's funny, that's her name, Petite Knit, but if you are quite petite, her patterns are, some of them are very oversized, even the smallest size. You might want to go down to the junior version if there is one. So I'm certainly thinking about that. So what I did do is I went into my wish list and I took patterns that were like that where there was a junior version. I took off the adult version and put on the junior version instead, just to remind myself that when I go to like my favorites, or I go to make something, then that's what I'm going to go to. But in the meantime, I will mention that, so this is getting to, I got gifted 2 patterns this week. I was gifted the Moby Sweater by Mary, and I was gifted the Moby Sweater Junior by Dianne. I'm actually really grateful to both Mary and Dianne for gifting those, because I know I will use both patterns. I think I'm going to use the Moby Sweater Junior for myself and use the largest size, which is around 37 inches. But I would like to make the Moby Sweater either for my husband or my son, and they would definitely need the adult, like the adult version, not the junior version. So I'm definitely going to use both. So I want to say thank you so much to Mary and Dianne, because I think the Moby Sweater is a really great pattern that would appeal to men, women, people who don't identify as one particular gender. Like it's very neutral, and I really like it. I think it's a really nice pattern, and I don't know if my son would wear it. I think my husband would. None of my kids really wear knits that much anyway, but I do think my husband would like it. So thank you very much, Mary and Dianne. And the other reason that I'm really happy to have both is it's quite interesting for me to see, like, what would I have done to modify it, and what, like, if I was going to go down, and then what does the pattern actually say? And my instincts were pretty close in terms of, because this is one of those that's not a raglan, you actually cast on for the back, and so you already have to have in mind like your stitch count, and there's not like this extra stitches that you cast on under the arms like there are for a raglan. So yep, so if you are finding the Petite Knit patterns are just a little bit too oversized, do take a look and see if there's a junior version. And I'm going to use the fact that I have both of these as a way to potentially see, say for example in the Oslo sweater, what could I do to downsize it, because there isn't a junior version of that one, and I'll see what Petite Knit did for Moby between the two, and sort of try to do something along those lines, because the Oslo sweater is just a little bit large. Anyway, that was a lot of just initial stuff, so I'll get back to acquisitions and plans. So thank you, Mary and Dianne, for the Moby Sweater patterns. I am planning on, because it is acquisitions and plans, I am planning on using this Labella DK yarn, this Great Ocean Road. And even though I'm getting a 21 stitch gauge, not in pattern, in stockinette, I do think that this one's going to actually work okay, even with a 37, I think it's 37.5 inch size. I don't mind if it ends up being like 35, 36. I still think with a cable sweater, that's probably enough ease for me. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to starting that one. So thank you so much. I might try and finish the clay pullover, or at least get closer to finishing it before I start that one. Another acquisition was actually Jane from Mindful Making has had sort of a yarn shop where she sells Holst Garn yarn, and she's deciding not to sell that anymore. She's going to cease her online business. She still designs patterns and is selling those, but in terms of actually selling yarn, she's stopped doing that. So she had a little sale, and I picked up some Titicaca. I got 2 skeins of that in Heather Rose, and this is Sweet Pea. This is Supersoft Sweet Pea, and I got 5 skeins of that. What I plan to do, I've seen a lot of people hold these 2 together, and they look really nice, and I think it's a really good combination. This yarn is 100% alpaca, and it's 400 meters, so it actually is pretty much the same as the Isia Alpaca one, certainly in terms of weight and yardage and fiber content. So I think it's quite a nice carry along to help sort of soften a color or just add a bit of heathering, similar to the way you might carry a silk mohair, but without quite the level of fluffiness. So what I plan to do is hold, now this actually is of quite a light fingering, 50 grams is 287 meters. And I remember when I first felt this, I'd been doing like a lot of knitting with, superwash, merino, and I felt this and I was like, super soft? I don't think so. It felt quite scratchy to touch, but from what I understand is it's still got some spinning oil in it. And so after you wash it and, remove that, it blooms and it softens up. And my sensitivity has changed to that now. Like I knit with a lot more woolly wools, and yeah, like I'm fine with something like this, and even that against my neck wouldn't bother me. So yes, I plan to hold these. I actually plan to make with this, I plan to make Joji Locatelli's Emery vest and the pattern is Emery vest and pullover. You get both in the one pattern, which I do really appreciate. Joji could have made them 2 separate patterns that you'd have to purchase, but she's put them as the one purchase, so you get 2 for 1. But I plan to make the vest, and I plan, because that pattern uses Shelter, which is quite a heavy woolen spun worsted weight yarn, held with another strand of maybe silk mohair or some other strand of like lace weight yarn. So I'm going to hold this one double and this one single, so I will have 3 strands of yarn. And yeah, I plan to make the Emery vest. Now this one, actually I might talk about this now, just about swatching in pattern. So I mentioned for the Moby Sweater I was meant to swatch in pattern, but Petite doesn't say anything about what to include in your swatch. Now the Moby Sweater has some garter, it has just a normal cable, it has some diamond lace. Like when she says swatch in pattern, like how much of each, like a couple of diamonds, the garter section and 1 cable? Like it's sort of a bit confusing. So what part of the pattern am I supposed to swatch in? Similarly with Joji's Emery vest, she says to swatch in pattern, but she actually at least gives a recommendation. She says do a diamond and 2 cables. So that's fine, okay. So she's actually sort of given some instructions. The clay sweater I thought was even better. Ozetta not only gives you a gauge in pattern, but she actually gives swatch instructions in pattern. She tells you to, for your swatch, cast on this many stitches, work these rows. So I really appreciated that. So I just thought, well, there's so much involved in designing a sweater and people swatching, you want to feel confident before you start. So yeah, if you're going to tell people to swatch in pattern, I think it's kind of nice to actually tell them, or maybe even create a swatch like stitch, like a cast on this many stitches, and something that incorporates a cable, the diamond and the cable. I mean, I can figure that out, but I just was thinking, it would be, at least Joji actually gave some information. With the Moby Sweater, there's no information at all. So I'm probably not even going to bother. I'm just going to wing it, which is, I don't, advise that generally, but from my feeling, and probably I will be really paying attention when I say, what I'll probably say is like the start of my sweater will be my swatch. I won't just knit half the sweater and then take a look at it. If I haven't made a swatch, I'll, cast on, knit, just a reasonable amount and use that as my swatch, and then see like what it's measuring at if I'm happy, and then I'll either rip back or continue if I'm happy with it. So that's another acquisition. have a few acquisitions this week actually. Oh, where is it? Here it is. So I'll just stick with yarn at the moment. This, I'm just going in order of whatever I've put down on my notes. So I taught 2 classes at my LYS on Saturday, and I had a class with a lovely lady, Mindy. If you're watching, Mindy, hello. She is a viewer, and she's from the US, and she was in town in Sydney, and she took the Fair Isle class with me, and she lives in Maine near a mill near her that is actually going out of business. And so she brought me a present. So thank you so much, Mindy. I love it so much. I've been pattern sort of searching. So this is Jagger Spun. It's this beautiful heathered. So unfortunately the mill's going out of business. So if you like the look of this yarn, and I think they specialize in heathered kind of yarns, you might want to get on and get some soon, because Mindy said she got the last 2 skeins of this. So this is a fingering weight, 100% wool yarn. It's just called Heather. And so it's 200 gram skeins. Each one has 498 yards. So I've got about 1,000 yards for this. And what I was thinking, because the heather is so pretty, but I do think I want to make a sweater out of it. So I probably want to hold some mohair with it to make a sweater like the when I was looking for patterns, I wanted to make sure it was one that, because 1,000 yards is sort of, it really depends on how much ease, and like I couldn't really probably have a bunch of cables, and and also this is a fairly light fingering weight yarn, so I think I'll have to get a sweater out of it, I'll have to put it with a mohair, but I don't want anything that will sort of obscure the lovely heathering, so you can still sort of see it through. So I probably need to match the value pretty well. So when I was looking in stash, this is too dark. I think I've got this really lovely oyster yarns. It looks black, but it's actually really dark purple. But I think that's going to be too dark. It will obscure the beautiful heathering of this yarn. So I'll need to look for something that's a bit closer in value to this. So I might take a look at either Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair or Isia. It's just tricky because it's not like you're sort of trying to judge from screens, and things don't always come the way that you think they will. So yes, but I'll especially when you're trying to match it with something else, but hopefully I'll be able to find something that matches that. And so pattern wise, what I was thinking, 1,000 yards, it's about 900 meters. I've made Petite Knit's No Frills sweater, which is a really nice raglan. I don't know if the pattern has twisted rib, but I used twisted rib when I made it, and I think I used something like 800 meters. So, and because it's raglan, you can just decide on sizing as you go, like just based on how many increases for your yoke depth and how many stitches you cast on under the arms. It's very flexible. So what I'm saying is that will hopefully mean I'm less likely to run out of yarn, because obviously I can't get any more of this. So I was thinking that one. The other one that I was thinking about was the Monday sweater, but I think the construction of that doesn't lend itself to the same kind of flexibility. So I do want to make the Monday sweater because I know a number of people have been really happy with that pattern, but I think when I make that, I'll make sure I've got plenty of yarn so that I'm not sort of having to make it more cropped or shorter sleeves than I would want. So thank you very much, Mindy. I'm very excited. I'm pretty sure the No Frills sweater, but I just need to find a mohair to go with it. Let me see, other acquisitions. I bought a pattern from Andrea Mowry. I bought the Throwover pattern. I can't remember if I mentioned this before. She had a moving sale. She's moving back to Michigan. And so that pattern has, it's quite a bulky, especially for a Fair Isle sweater, it's fairly bulky. The gauge is 16 1/4 stitches. But it's got like a nice rib here that just sort of comes up to about here. It's got a really lovely Fair Isle color work. So I bought that pattern because I actually had this, I think I've shown this before, or Beck showed this. This is my friend Beck's handspun, and I was really looking for a pattern to use this with, and I had this Rerum Natura Gilliatt, I've said it, I'm pretty sure it's Gilliatt. Anyway, I've got that, and I think those two are going to look really nice, but I was a bit nervous. So I bought that pattern, right, in the 50% off sale. So I bought that. I'm like kind of busting to make this because I can't wait to see Beck's handspun knit up. But what I did though, because I was a bit worried, will I have enough? I think when I've looked at people's projects, they've used like about 130 meters, sort of between 130 for my size, 130, 150 meters. And what I did was I measured from here to here for the skein, and then counted how many of each of these there were, and then doubled it, because obviously like to get the full circumference. And I ended up only about 92 meters. So I think that's going to be really lovely. But if you look at the throwover, there's some ferrule here, like sort of a 1x1 band. Then there's like some zigzags. Then there's another 1x1 band. And I was at my OAS on Saturday, so I took this with me, and I thought I'll have a look at their Spincycle Dream State to see if I have something that could sort of complement, particularly because there's sort of these different sections. You've got the 1x1, the chevron, and then another 1x1. So I thought, and the Dream State has 150 yards, and even though obviously they're not the same, I thought they might kind of at least work well together. So especially if I did it in like one band in this, then Beck's handspun, and then another band in this. So with this, like there's not a lot of contrast there, but I'm kind of okay with that. Like I'm quite happy for that to be pretty subtle, but then obviously that's quite poppy. So yeah, I'm so excited. So that's, I've got the pattern, I've got the yarn, I'm raring to go on that one. So, but what to do next? That will be so quick though, a 16 stitch gauge. Now that's a bit of an issue too, because I've knit this yarn. The pattern uses a 5mm needle. I've knit this yarn for my Snow Wonder on a 4.5. Right, I did knit Snow Wonder using this yarn on a 4.5mm needle, and I got 19 stitches. So going up one needle size, would I end up around 16? I'm not sure, might be a little bit smaller, but I can probably compensate, like, you know, either I'll cast on some more stitches under the arms, or maybe I'll make it a tiny bit smaller. I definitely want it oversized though, and I have 4 balls of this, so I should be fine there. But I think that will be a really quick project. I probably do need to do a swatch on 5mm. Yeah, I think I will, just so I've got a bit of an idea going in, what the fabric will be like. Will I be happy with it? But I think I will. Like even this yarn is really quite plump, and the 4.5mm needle, you know, it had some density. I don't think a 5 would be too open on this. So, but I will swatch. Yes, so that is a plan coming up. Oh, the other thing is, this is my last plan. I talked about the Margot top that Lydia gifted me last week, and I talked about using this Ella Rae Silkians, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this now, because I mentioned that my local yarn store sold the Kremke Morning Salutation. So I was like, oh, I'll just go and have a look and see, you know, if they have anything there that might work. And there was a beautiful range of colors. I'll just put a picture up here. And I'm looking in, you know, in the light, and which one do I think would work. And it was only when I sort of had a closer look at the label, and it was like Morning Salutation Fino. And I was like, and I went on to Ravelry, and then I saw there were 2 different Morning Salutations. There's a DK, and then there's a finer version, like a sort of 4-ply sport weight yarn. So I almost bought the sport weight yarn for the DK weight pattern. And I just remember Sherry saying that, Sherry on Good Knits, she bought a DK weight yarn of something that was meant to be a 4-ply and knit quite a lot of it before she realized. So I just want to say thank you, Sherry, because just even that, the thought of that and remembering you mentioning that was like, hang on a minute, I got to check Ravelry. Is this the same yarn? Let me look at the yardage. Let me look at the pattern. So that was really helpful. So I almost made a massive mistake there. I mean, I could have taken the yarn back once I'd realized, but who knows? I could have just charged in and started making it, which is pretty much like me, and not even realized. Anyway, what that does mean is I will use this Ella Rae Silkians, and even if I don't especially love this color on me, I'll just over dye it a navy or something. So yep, so that's my is that it? I think that's my acquisitions and plans. Oops, one more thing I did forget. Because that Audrey top is being quite hard on my hands, I think I am going to cast on for the peacock tee out of this lovely, I've mentioned this before, but I think that's going to happen this week, this lovely Cascade Ultra Pima, because I want that in my wardrobe, and I think the Audrey top's going to be just a bit slow going, and this is much easier to knit with. Even though it's 100% cotton, it's definitely like quite nice on my hands. So that's one more little work in progress. No, not work in progress. One more little plan coming up. So my next little section is just where I'm at with Patty Lyon's Knitting Bag of Tricks, the official workbook. I'm continuing on with the exercises, and this week's exercise for me was just this little section here where I was knitting the yarn, wrapping the yarn differently. So I normally knit Western, where when I wrap the yarn, when I knit, I go under over, and then when I purl, I go over under. And then that way the stitches are all mounted with the right leg leaning, like the right leg facing. Whereas another method would be combination, where you purl, wrapping the yarn in the other direction, which I mentioned in what I was doing in my clay sweater, and that creates a tighter purl. It uses less yarn, but then what you have to do is when you knit through the back loop. And then there's Eastern, where you seem to do everything the opposite. Anyway, I played around with that on this swatch, and I had to make my observations. And one thing that I did notice for me was that everything was a bit tighter, both with Eastern and combination. And maybe that was just because of the, the wrapping with the pearls, which made those stitches tighter, which made then the next stitch a bit tighter. So I just did my little observations around it. I'm not switching to Eastern or combination. I'm sticking with my Western. That's obviously, it took more time because I had to be more mindful. It definitely slowed me down, but it was interesting. And I definitely, the main thing was to make some observations around it, and my observations were that I was a lot tighter. So perhaps if your knitting is really loose, you might want to try at least wrapping your, try combination knitting, wrapping your pearls the other way, because that definitely tightens up your pearls, which then means the stitch is a little bit smaller, and it may just then consequentially tighten up your knits and just generally tighten up your knitting overall. So if you find that you're a bit of a loose knitter, you might want to try that. But like anything, don't switch mid-project. If you're going to do that, my recommendation is to do like a small, beanie or something. If you want to practice both, maybe make a beanie in the flat and sew it up, right? You don't normally do that for beanies, but if you just want to, the purpose is to practice, and you want to practice both knitting and purling, then yeah, maybe try that, and making just a little beanie and sewing it up. But yeah, it was really interesting. And the other thing that I did was I did another little section, like for the clay pullover, where I did this whole section combination, and because this is flat, not in the round, I had to sort of have this yarn around the back. But I also found that it wasn't a massive difference. It was definitely a bit tighter, but not significantly so. Enough so that I don't think I'll change anything with the clay pullover. But what it does mean is I'm going to be going into that with more confidence. Look, I could wrap the other way, but the difference, especially the washed swatch difference, is negligible for me. So I don't think I'll bother doing it differently. I'll just knit the way I normally knit, and I think I'll be happy with the result. So that's where I'm up to in that one. And I think my next exercise is just a little bit more about sort of wrapping the stitch randomly differently, and then seeing if you can feel whether I should be going into the back loop or the front loop to not twist it. Anyway, that's my next exercise, so I'll do that next week. So that's it for that segment. That's kind of it for the knitting content. So there are some segments that I haven't included this week. So like my, knitted items, like garments that haven't seen much wear. I can't remember what I called that segment, but I think I've mentioned this before. Not every segment will be in every week, or these episodes will run for hours. So whatever I have to talk about that week, that's what I'll talk about. My usual things will always be finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions and plans, and then some personal stuff at the end. If I happen to have done anything with my Patty Lyon's workbook, I'll talk about it, but if I haven't, I just won't even mention it, right? So if you're okay with that, it'll always be the usual stuff, but then some things will, come and go depending on what I've been up to that week or how busy I've been. So I'm just going to talk about books and shows next, and then personal stuff. So if you're leaving me now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back next week. Yes, actually, maybe I'll mention this now. I did talk about some some tutorial plans that I want to do. So I just wanted to say that yes, within the first half of November, I plan to do one on just gauge and picking a size if your gauge doesn't exactly match the pattern, you know, which size to pick depending on what, like how big you want your garment to finish up. So I'll do one tutorial on that. So that is upcoming. I plan to record that this weekend. And then the other one is on pickup rates for like how to work out how frequently to pick up stitches based on the number of rows you've got and how many stitches you need to pick up for a pattern. I've done videos where I show picking up the stitches, but just in terms of the planning behind it, I do plan to do a video on that upcoming. So I just thought I'd mention that now. So yes, if you're leaving me now, thank you so much, and I'll see you in a week for another episode. Books and shows. So we finished watching Slow Horses, which was excellent. That season ended, and that was really, a really good show. And we've started watching another English show that I think it's called In the Line of Fire. And the previous season was like 3 years ago. So we've been waiting a long time for a new season on that one, but that's just come out and really enjoying that. I was talking last week about listening to the audiobook of Atomic Habits. And so I finished the audiobook, which was really good. But because I was walking and knitting while I was listening to it, I couldn't really make any notes. It was just sort of mentally filing things away, but they sort of, you know, waft off into the air. So I've put my name down for, because I got the audiobook from the library, but I put my name down for the ebook, but I'm like 137 in the queue. So this book was written in 2018. So unless somebody famous must have talked about it recently. Anyway, I'm in the queue for the ebook, but I'm number 2 in the queue for a physical book from my local library. So hopefully that will come soon, because I would like to actually read it and make some notes and actually do some things differently. I've sort of mentally started to, particularly around, you know, decluttering and stuff. But, you know, I like to be structured. Well, I need to be structured. So I'm looking forward to getting the book and actually just making some concrete plans. But I'm very proud of myself that I put, like, you know, doing my homework for this. I sort of put it somewhere in my diary and, you know, actually put a particular day for it and an alarm for it. So, I followed through on a habit that I want to keep. So, anyway, that's just a small little piece of the book, but it was a good book, and I did finish it. I enjoyed it. It's nothing too deep. It's very easy, and probably a lot of stuff you've heard before from different people, and a lot of things that I also recognized that I was already doing, which was validating. But I also think that, yeah, there's more of it in there in terms of helping me, like working out what habits I want to cultivate first, and then how to cultivate them. So that's it for books and shows. Other personal stuff. So I mentioned already that I was at my local yarn store on Saturday and taught a fixing mistakes class and a fair isle class, and that was fantastic. I just love teaching those classes, and just really, especially the fair isle class. I mean, the fixing mistakes one was really good too. There were 3 people in that class, and there were 6 students in the fair isle class, and it just creates, it's more than just what you're learning. It's this whole dynamic and people chatting with each other, and yeah, it was really lovely. So that was on the weekend. I've mentioned about doing recording a video on our trip to Bali, and Alex has tomorrow off, and I've got my appointment with my rheumatologist tomorrow. So in the afternoon, I think we'll both be able to record, and hopefully that I'll get that out for the weekend. It won't be a very long video, just some of the things that we did, and some photos and some footage, like a bit of videos. We, you know, dove with manta rays and that kind of stuff. So there's some cool things there that I'd like to show you, but it shouldn't be a very long video. I picked up my new car, the Hyundai Tucson. I'm very happy with that. And yeah, like getting used to driving it, it's just a bit weird, but yeah, some good features, and I'm enjoying it. It works, it goes. Other things that I want to share this because I wanted to put a little clip up. There's been a lot of, just a busy time for wildlife in our area. You might have seen there's a lot of minor birds that keep flying back and forth. We have a nesting box on the side of the house, just that direction of that direction. Yeah, am I pointing the right way? No, I don't know. I don't know which way I'm pointing. Anyway, doesn't really matter where it is. There's a nesting box on the side of the house, and we used to have rosellas, which beautiful plumage, but the minor birds sort of shooed them away. So I did notice that the rosellas in the nesting box, they don't put any twigs or anything. They just lay their eggs into the bare box. Whereas the minor birds they make a nest within the box. It's full of like twigs and, you know, wrappers and things that they found. So and I can see it even from the little hole at the top. I can see all of the, so I'm imagining there's either eggs in there or maybe even birds. I haven't looked yet because I don't want to interrupt them. I'm not a big fan of minors. I really was a bit upset when they shooed the rosellas away or scared them off. But yeah, that's what's happening over there with the minor birds. The other thing that we've had in our area is we've had an echidna in the front yard, and we've seen one crossing the road, but we also had one in the front yard. I'll put up some footage of him just at the base of a tree that's just in our front yard, really getting into eating ants. We saw a lot of ants with ant larvae at the base of the tree, so he was having a huge feast and really enjoying himself. They're very cute. So an echidna is similar to a spiny anteater. They're not exactly the same, but they're similar. Certainly echidna is a monotreme, so it lays eggs but secretes milk, but they're a mammal. Anyway, they're very cool. They've got this like little, it is different to a spiny anteater. It's sort of a bit more of a bill of a nose. But yeah, they're so cute and they waddle. But you definitely don't want to go near them. We had one in our backyard once and our dogs were going nuts, and we had to have the local wires, I don't know what they're called in other countries, but WIRES, to come out and actually get him out. And they really recommend, if you ever have one in your backyard, people try to sometimes use a spade or a shovel to get them up, and then they actually chop their feet off. So definitely, if you ever find one in your backyard, you want to call wires and get them to come and, because they just grip onto the surface, so it's very hard to get them off, but they've got whatever, they're used to doing it. So anyway, he was in our front yard, so nowhere near the dog, and yeah, he was just very happy chowing down on ants. So yeah, it's a nice time of year. It's, you know, spring here, and lots of wildlife. And even though the miners are kind of annoying, they have quite a sweet little chirp. Although, yeah, anyway, they're nice. So, although I do miss the rosellas. We used to have rosellas there all the time, but since the miners have been around, no rosellas for quite a while. Anything else? Oh yeah, so just coming up this weekend, my Knitters Guild has a once a month gathering on the first Saturday of the month, and I haven't been in years, so I'm really hoping to get to that one this Saturday. I've just got lots of marking and reports and exam writing for the next few weeks. I've got 5 weeks left of school, and then that's our summer long break, so it's quite a short term, this one. The other things that are coming up, my husband is having double knee replacements in 3 weeks from today, so I think things are going to have to move around this house a little bit. I don't know that I'm going to be recording from this spot, because I think where I am now, there's a lower part of the house, but this level here, the kitchen's on this level, and my bedroom and bathroom's on this level. So, and with 2 knee replacements, I don't think he's going to be going up and down stairs anytime soon. And the office is down in the corner, so he might need this space for his office, and I might have to move down to the office, which is fine, but I'm not sure that I'll be recording here while he's recovering. So yep, the recording location may change, but the content will be the same. But one thing that will be nice about that is I'll actually be able to set up my sewing machine in there, and hopefully having it more visible, and it might make it a little bit easier, and just I might end up sewing a little bit more, which would be good. And yeah, and also I'll have the long school break coming up, so hopefully that will be an opportunity for me to do projects where I need to sort of just take a bit more of my thought, and less like knitting where I get to just pick it up and put it down again. So I'm almost finished. The last little thing that I just wanted to say was 2 weeks ago I shared about my decision to give up alcohol completely, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for their encouragement around that decision, and for others who shared about their own experiences. So it's yeah, I just find that really helpful when we sort of share with each other. And yeah, I used to smoke when I was younger, and I'm so a lot younger, and I'm so glad I don't smoke anymore. I just can't even imagine having a cigarette. So yeah, I know that I feel that way, I feel freer not drinking alcohol. It's just not even in my brain. So yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who shared or who gave me some encouragement. And yeah, like it's taken a while, but I've gotten to a point where it really doesn't feel like I'm giving anything up. I've just moved on to other things, better things for me anyway. So, right, so that's it for this week. I will see you next week. Hope you're enjoying your knitting.